Fight for the Iron Kingdoms as a warcaster. Take control of the mighty jacks, arcane devices, and dark sorceries to bring the fight to the War Machine Hub on beastsofwar.com. Progress comes to a world of magic as science and the arcane combine to make marvels. Meet steampunk inventors and orc mystics at the Volsung Hub on beastsofwar.com.
Good morning and welcome to The Weekender. It's a bit different, this one. We're getting a morning cup of tea here. You have caught us right in the middle of, well, not in the middle, at the tail end of boot camp preparation. So I thought this morning we'd do something a little bit different before we cover some other bits and pieces we want to show you. We are giving away prizes. We have amazing prizes this week. Really good prizes. And we have prize announcements to make. So, but before all of that, I wanted to show you around and talk about terrain making and show you some of the stuff that we're doing for the boot camp and some of the thought processes and things like that that go into a boot camp. So that if you ever decide to do an event, you and your friends, well, you have some of our hot tips on how you do it. So this boot camp is for Team Yankee. Have we a rule book, gentlemen? There's one behind Justin.
Yep.
So Team Yankee is a Cold War gone hot game. So in other words, it's set in 1985. And the first thing that we had to do was to work out, right, how can we do an environment that will have a kind of a feel of 1985? What is it feasible for us to do? Because, you know, so much as I have all these highfalutin ideas, I'm sure as anybody else does, of, oh, wouldn't it be great to do Berlin or do this or do that or do the other? You can only do what you can ultimately do. So we decided what we were going to do was to set it more eastern, into the push into Eastern Europe, because it was something that we have some personal experience of. Both myself and Lloyd have been there a few times, and it was we had some ideas of how we could retrofit other bits and pieces that we had to make it fit a theme that we would come up with. Now we're jokingly calling the whole place Lloydoslavia. Isn't that right, Lloyd?
Yes, apparently so.
It's which has been great fun. But you know, whether you're taking a light-hearted view of it, as we are, or whether you're taking a more serious view, you're going to end up with very similar results. So it all started with these gaming mats. Okay, now these are gaming mats that we built for historical-based games and for kind of, you know, a rural-based game. So we had built them originally for the Bolt Action Boot Camp. Now, if you're interested in how to build these, we actually have a great series called Hobby Lab that's in the Backstage part of Beasts of War, where we show step-by-step how we do all the things like the fields and the hedgerows and the likes. But what we did was we took them, what we had made in the fields and hedgerows, and stuck them down on this wonderful grass mat that you can get from Antonosity's studio or Antonosity's workshop. With the idea being that we would have 12 or 13 really cool, interesting mats that whenever any kind of a boot camp or an event or a tournament or something came up, we could slide them down and have this already made canvas on which we can base what we're doing. So we built them with the idea of being dual scaled in mind. So that dual scaling means that whatever we did to it, we wanted it to work for whether you had a 28mm or a 20mm scale miniature, or in this case a 15mm miniature. And what you would do is you would then change the scale of the trees, the scale of other incidental bits and pieces right across the terrain to rescale it, and you find, that actually works. So whereas a 28mm tank will happily roll up that road and take up most of the road, a 15mm tank will happily roll up it and it becomes an actual road, whereas for a 28mm tank it's more of a dirt track. And this bad boy here Well, this is one of the tanks that's going to be used at the boot camp. So to give you an idea of what Cold War Gone Hot looks like compared to World War II, things start to get big and impressive. Yeah, looking forward to that. So that was our mats. The next thing that we decided to do was to think, right, how do we really start to make this feel like 1980s rural kind of Eastern Europe? And our whole approach was based on the idea of concrete. Lots and lots of concrete. Our experience from traveling about out there was you would be in the most beautiful rural areas, and then this, just out of nowhere, this huge concrete edifice would appear where there would be like a grain silo or some kind of big concrete storage pieces. So I will start by talking you through the grain silos and how we made those. Lloyd?
Hello.
So the grain silos started life out as soda cans. In this case, one of Justin and my favorites, it was kind of like a Red Bully kind of a thing called Boost. So we get them, we poured all the Boost out of them. We
Monster!
didn't even.
Poison though. You couldn't drink that amount.
You couldn't have drank the amount that we brought in.
Right.
We could have given it a go. I could do with it now, I've got to say. But we pour it all out, and then what we do is we glued 8 of them together. Once we glued them together, we actually filled them with sand to give them a bit of weight, as so. And then when we filled them with sand, we plugged them with clay. So we just used clay in the bottom to give it a plug. So, after that, we put on it our legendary Magimix. Now, you can go into Backstage, into Hobby Lab, where we talk at length about Magimix. But Magimix is basically Sprackle, or we call it like polyfiller, mixed with PVA glue, and sometimes a little scattering of sand in there, and then possibly a touch of paint.
And you can use it on everything.
Yeah, it's an amazing, amazing mix. And what you do is once you get that in a bowl, all stirred up, you get an old paintbrush and you stipple it on. And you just stipple, 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 stipple. And then once it dries, it actually looks like concrete. So we've used it for city boards.
If you put it here, Lance will be able to film it, and it was a little bit easier.
So that gives us the base, the concrete structure of a grain silo. We then created what were our toppers. Okay, now the toppers are actually being designed on computer by Lloyd, so you can take us through these.
Yeah. So we've got in fact, if I just go over here, I'll get the net. Is it okay to take this net, John? Yeah. I'll come back over here now. So, designed up on computer in the simplest form possible. Basically a rectangle, and you fold over the sides around a wooden structure, like so. So we've built a wooden structure that's the size of the roof.
I will get you the wooden structure.
Yeah, that's a good example. Perfect.
There we go.
So the wooden structure looks like this. And then there's a couple of supports that go in to support the actual roof segments. They sit in like that. So glue it all together, you get this structure. Cut this out, put it on the top, basically fold the sides down around it. There's a bit more wizardry to it, pre-folding and stuff like that, but that's the basics of it. And then we had this horrible version here,
yes,
because we've had some printer problems. So if you've watched any of the vlogs, that's the colour it was. So when I set it down, it's quite jarring. It's not actually the colour it's supposed to be. This is actually the colour it's supposed to be when it prints correctly.
It also shows you how we tend to approach things when we're doing this kind of stuff. It's an evolution, it's step by step, but we will try things out at multiple points during the steps. Like, for example, if you even start to look at the difference between these two, as well as the colors, the color difference, on the top, you can see a lot more detail has went into the actual paneling, and there's a lot more kind of color variation and so on and so forth.
Yeah, some more dirty textures and things.
So ultimately, it sits on so, And then to go on top of that, we have another small piece, which wraps around a wooden piece like that, which is an extra set of skylights. Do we have another set of these skylights built anywhere, guys?
No.
No?
I'm currently salvaging some of the prototypes.
Oh, okay. So there's a green silo with the skylights and stuff in place.
Which adds a bit more 3D-ness to the building, because
Yes.
we're building a square building to make it as simple as possible, and then another square put on top, simple construction, but then the overall effect is quite 3D once it's combined with the actual curves of the cans and things.
Now, you might question, why are we going to the hassle of building frames and things out of wood? I don't have a great answer to that, if I'm being honest. Mostly it's down to speed. We can very quickly create these, and we know that they'll be strong. Whereas we don't feel that we could create card kind of structures just as quickly, and even if we could, we're not sure they'd be quite as strong. So with it being a boot camp where we have guests and stuff coming, and we're hoping to keep this stuff that we could maybe use it for maybe a tournament or some other kind of event in the future, it seemed to make sense to us to try and create these things out of a wooden kind of a structure like that, so that it's a bit stronger. Okay, let me show you some other little details that we have going on. Can you stop sanding, please, Lloyd? So, Justin, I want to talk about your fences. Come on over and tell us about your fences.
Alright, I'll bring one that I haven't used yet.
So, one of the other things that we've been doing is putting in fencing and things like that. Anything at all that we can put into the terrain to make it look like it's set in 1980. So, Justin, show us your fences and talk us through how they were made.
Basically, what we started out with, we've taken a sheet of aluminium, which is done in a little hex grid.
Yeah, it's aluminium mesh that you would buy from a car body parts place. We have a car body place here called Halford's, and you tend to find this where you would find things like isopon and fiberglass and things like that.
Yeah. So we've taken that to start with, and we've cut it into, as you can see, little strips. So after we've cut it into strips, I've came along and spaced out some fence posts, which are little toothpicks.
Yeah.
After that, we actually bend it to shape and pin it in to our little hedgerows here.
Now show the pin. Put the pin there so as I can see the pin.
Okay, 1 second. So our pin is actually just a little staple that we've bent into an L shape.
Right. There we go. Let's get some focus.
Okay.
So there is what a pin looks like. Starts out life
as a staple.
As
we
a
just
staple.
bend it to an L, because that way we can put it into our hedgerows and it'll actually pin everything down and into place. So we've got one bit that came a little loose here. Feed it in and just push in. And that just holds everything nicely in place.
Yeah.
So that if you're playing away, stuff isn't really just going to get knocked out of the way.
So that's fences. So once the toothpicks are put on, Justin's maybe already spoken about this, but it's then primed white, and then we have a little bit of rust effect that we just tap here and there, just to show a little bit of wear and tear. Wear and tear is a good option when you come to do terrain building.
It blends things.
Yes, and it's always easier to do terrain projects where you have the ability to put in some wear and tear, some damage and things like that. It's much more forgiving than trying to do the ultra clean look stuff. So that's fencing. Where there isn't fencing, we've crafted these what are going to be resin wall pieces. Now what they actually are is 28mm casts from a Hearst Arts mold that are used to create the lead roofing on a Gothic building. But we suspect once we put these together, they're going to make some great kind of little concrete walls. Okay, so in the rural parts of Lloydislavia, we wanted to get that feel for rural housing. You know, the kind of the little cottages and shacks and things like that you would find buried deep 2 fields back, surrounded by plum fields or plum orchards and aubergine fields. So we reached out, and the guys over at 4Ground said, absolutely, we want to get involved. So they started by sending us a bunch of trees that would fit quite nicely in with the 15mm scale. So if you pan down here, you can start to see a range of trees. Most of them, like these ones, the good-looking ones, are from 4Ground. But they also sent us a package of these beautiful little wooden buildings, okay? Now, the roofs are maybe just a little bit shallow for a Lloydislavia, but whenever you start to do things at this scale, you can get a little bit of forgiveness here and there. But these little buildings come together as a laser cut piece, and then what we did was we built a whole pile of them, and then we started to recolor them. So we have this one. We started in this one here. We added some blue. Here we've done a kind of a red roof on this one. And then some of them come actually damaged. And on those ones, we have one here, for example, which is damaged. And then all the spare bits and pieces we've been gathering up to have it as if it's been kind of blown out. And here's one here that's been on fire. And using a little bit of black airbrushing right at the final stages allows you to darken some of that to get that burned out effect. Now, there's a couple of other little pieces just on the other side that I'm really proud of. Lance has a bit stuck to him. So let me go around this side here. When we are doing our research, we found some amazing Romanian buildings that actually had kind of patterns and things like that painted onto them. So we decided to try and replicate that just using a white artist's pen, which is a pen that has white ink in it, funny enough. And it allowed us, it was a 0.7 of a millimeter, and it allowed us to try and recreate that effect. I think we have another one further on down here where we've done the same. And again, you can see this actually quite striking, the final effect that you get from that. So the other thing that we've added to try and help scale the boards are these concrete telegraph poles. So they're a standard telegraph pole kit that you can get from 4Ground, and we sprayed them and applied the basic kind of concrete colors to them that we had been applying to the likes of the gas silos and the grain silos. So that looks at the rural areas. There were a couple of other things that we wanted to add in to try and just give it a sense of, I don't know, a sense of, wow, that's kind of cool. So we kicked off with a tank graveyard. Now, John, come on over and talk to us about your tank graveyard.
Tank graveyard.
During the research, we found that in a lot of the kind of, I suppose in the Soviet states and things like that, you would have found a lot of the old tanks and things like that were all kind of bundled together in one big breaker's yard, where they would, I'd say, live out the rest of their days, but sit idle.
Yeah, they basically sit idle. You find this stuff all over the former Eastern Bloc, and there's still people selling this stuff today. You know, they're still finding yards like this, but this would be like a 100th the size of a real one.
Yes.
You know, we would need the entire room to fill out a proper one. But
so it's a mini graveyard.
It's a mini graveyard. It's a tiny one. But yeah, we've a mixture of stuff in here. There's T-54s. There's T-34s.
T-54?
Yep.
Where did it last see action?
Well, they would have still been being used by some of the Eastern Bloc at the time. But in this case, these might have been vehicles that were brought back from Afghanistan during the Russian invasion.
T-34?
T-34s. Some of them were still in service up until the 1980s with certain countries out in the East. But the Soviets finished with them in 1946, 47.
And then these little ones here.
PT-76s, which are amphibious. So they could swim at one point, but they were still being used. Again, this is all technology. The more modern stuff in here was starting to go out of date.
Yeah.
And the Russians themselves were bringing in the newer stuff, like you'll see in Team Yankee T-72s and the like.
So how did you prep them then, John? They came in as a bunch of resin models, yeah?
Yep. So they were all built as normal. We then gave them a primer coat. We went for a very dark primer coat. We went for a, what was it called? Chaotic red. Very dark. Then we took them back in here and we covered them in Model Mate's Rust Effect.
Yeah.
And stippled that on. And when you stipple it on, in some cases you see the primer still showing through and you get this amazing looking flaking rust effect on some of the metal.
And then after that, you went round the bottoms of them just to put grass.
A little bit of static grass on, make it look like they've been lying for a few years and stuff's starting to grow out around them.
And then these little piles were just debris that was left over from the sprues, yeah?
So we had fuel tanks and mud guards and bits and pieces. We had a couple of spare turrets. We broke them up a bit and made the little set-on pieces to go with it.
So was that an army painted primer, the chaotic red?
Yes, that is.
Yeah. So there's a piece of flavour that was fairly straightforward to do.
About a couple of days' work.
But it gave it something, again, to try and give that sense of we're no longer in Kansas.
Yeah,
so
certainly that's Eastern Bloc. So.
Okay, while that was going on, we tasked Justin with the challenge of creating a cemetery. So where is he now? He's vanished.
No, Justin, right there.
So this is Justin's cemetery. Now you're not finished just yet, Justin.
A few bits of detailing left to do, but I think it's came together really nice to start with.
So the idea for a cemetery was, again, anything that can create something that on one of the tables that made you stop and go, oh.
It's just those little moments of going,
that's interesting.
Yeah.
It's something that it may not have much impact on your movement and things like that, but what it does do is it gives you a sense of that the environment is real. It's little details and things like that that just make the environment feel more complete, feel
as
more
if
real.
people would have actually lived in it.
So, again, we wanted to make these parts removable because, remember, the underlying mats have to stay dual scaled. So what they do is they actually slide in and out.
Yeah.
And they're backed onto cornflakes packets.
Yeah.
So, Justin, explain the process of what we did.
Well, to actually
Let me just jump in here. Cornflakes packets. How long have you guys been giving me grief about saving this?
Wait.
Wait.
Why do you think I used it?
Do you see, Anna? They've been used.
Wait. They've been used because I'm tired of having them in the office.
They're great modelling material.
Right, so the way I've made this, I've started with our cardboard backing. You can use a cornflakes packet or whatever. Next up,
Rice Krispies.
Frosties.
Yeah, Frosties.
Although I do like Cocoa Puffs.
Cocoa Pops, yeah.
All right, anyway, we started with that. Then we moved on and put some of our Antonosity's Workshop grass mat down, right?
Yeah.
So once that's all glued down, Lloyd then had found a nice little sort of cobble-style wallpaper.
Yes, where is the wallpaper?
Which we then laid out into nice little strips to give us all our walkways. Now, the one thing I was very careful of with this one, and I hope you agree with me, is
so this is the wallpaper. So this is our cobble wallpaper. I don't know if you can get that or not, whether if I bring it down here, whether it's easier to see. Yeah. So pick this up in B&Q, so a hardware store. It's a fairly repeaty pattern, if I'm being honest, but as you can see, it works quite well
for the cobblestones. But as I was laying these out, I was very careful to make sure that I could get a base of infantry between each set of headstones.
Yeah.
So if you set in there, Warren. So each set of headstones, you can get a base of infantry in between. That way, it's not a piece of terrain that suddenly you're having to play around rather than play through.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think it's a nice little piece. It's a nice little something extra.
Actually, just before we put it down, the funny thing is, Anna came in now. My wife's Polish, so she's from like the eastern sort of bloc. She came in and went, graveyards like that don't look like that. They're all over the place. And I had to say, but we need to be able to put bases down of men. Oh no, but the gravestones would be everywhere. Yes, but we wouldn't be able to play on it.
I'm calling it a military graveyard. That's explaining the precision of how it's laid out.
It's a Lloydoslavian graveyard.
Exactly.
It's a Lloydoslavian graveyard.
Space
there comes a point, and this is the challenge that you always face when you start to do terrain, is that
accuracy versus playability.
Yes, but it's not only that. There's more. There's kind of accuracy versus playability versus what you can actually achieve with what you've got at hand.
True.
And a lot of this stuff, you're not trying to create a diorama. You're trying to create something that whenever this is all finished and the boot camp kicks off and people come in and they look around, that it has a sense of a diorama from this scale. And of course, when you start to get in closer, maybe the whole thing starts to break down just a little bit, but not too much. Anyway, so these little graveyards are kind of cute. Another little thing that we've been doing is putting little kind of monuments and things into play. So here we've discovered, and we've known for a while now, that the T-34s, you sometimes find them in Soviet towns actually turned into a statue where it was a real T-34 that was rolled up onto a stone plinth, and then they turned the engine off and they walked away, and it got a fresh coat of paint every couple of years.
Well, if you check YouTube, there are videos out there of people jumping onto these monuments, sticking some fresh fuel into it, and off it goes.
Still starting up 50 years.
Doesn't sound happy, but it will start.
Yeah. So we thought, it's an opportunity for us to recreate that. So that was our little graveyard. Now we're moving into the bit where it's all starting to get a bit more intense, where we have a lot more building and constructing to do. Because the one thing we always wanted to do was, in Lloydoslavia, we were trying to recreate that industrial, agricultural kind of heartland. So where the entire rural area, its entire purpose was for in that industrial agricultural level, huge grain silos, huge crops, all being pulled in to feed the motherland. It's the motherland, John, isn't it? Yeah, it's the motherland. So as you get into the center of Lloydoslavia, we wanted to create that sense of you starting to come into the more urban areas. So what we've done is we decided we were going to start to create a kind of a more cobblestone type, urban type feel, using exactly a very similar approach to what Justin used on the graveyards. So we measured out and we created set-in pieces that would allow us to urbanize and to start to give us this kind of a cobbly kind of urban feel. And Lloyd has been working on actual buildings. So these buildings, again, designed and printed out and then put onto a wooden framework. So you can see the basics of the framework inside there. Lloyd, do you want to talk us through some of the details of them?
Yeah, I'm just trying to get a man. We've set a trip somewhere for scale.
Yeah,
there you go.
In the graveyard.
Ah, excellent. Yeah, so the most important thing when you start to build a building is to actually make sure you scale it well. And if I hold these troops down against it, you'll see their doors look pretty big, but the doors on these apartment blocks usually are pretty tall, aren't they? Because there's maybe a set of steps inside that door with like a little place where they collect their mail and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and what you'll often find, he's even done it here, is there'll be a core staircase going past these windows, and I have seen little plants and trailing creepers and things like that growing up the insides of these buildings. So.
Yeah, we've got all sorts of stuff here. We've got plants, we've got a bird cage, we've got those little dolls that go inside each other.
Yeah.
We've got some more creepy dolls, got some picture frames.
Hideous curtains.
We've got some candlesticks up here. Decorative plates.
Yeah.
All sorts of little details in these windows and hideous curtains, like you say. I mean, the curtains had to be hideous for the 80s.
So we have about 25 of these to build, because the whole process now is to start to fill out this kind of the more urbanized area. So the urbanization aspect takes place here, all across here, and there. The other cool thing I've been thinking of doing here, if I'm being honest, if I could just grab it, is I think that this big one will make the most awesome parade ground. so when the boot camp finishes, I'm tempted to strip this down and get a whole bunch of stuff and just do a parade at the end right across. And we can all stand proudly together and watch it all parade.
Am I going to have to sing my part of the Lloydosławian national anthem again?
And we've got to gamify it some way. So, what do you think? We'll just have everything move D3 inches every turn. Anyway, so the urbanization aspect is taking place from there, to here, and then through into here. So all of these will all have buildings that gradually get bigger as we potentially add some more floors and things like that to it, to give us that final sense of, you're coming out of the rural areas and you're starting to get into where all the workers and stuff like that have been housed before going off into the fields and things like that to get the grain. So that is that. That is your morning virtual tour of what is being put together for a Beasts of War boot camp. At the moment, people are beavering away. John is cutting out the grain silo tops, so they're going from that to be cut into this shape before being applied around the wooden frame. Lloyd is doing some of that application himself over there, and then later today we'll all be getting together to do a big production line to be putting together these buildings. We're going to be doing that today, Saturday, and tomorrow, Sunday. So we have tons to do, but we also have a little bit of a show to put on because I've got some cool stuff to show, and we have some prizes to give away. So we'll be right back after we tell you about some hubs.
Venture into the dangerous dungeons of myth as a mighty hero and stand against the darkness. Visit the Myth Hub on beastsofwar.com and begin your story. Keep your blaster handy, the West is a dangerous place. Fight to survive as men turn to monsters and the dead rise on the Wild West Exodus Hub at beastsofwar.com.
Okay, so Justin has something to show us!
Yeah, the guys at 4Ground's.
Wait,
What?
before you show us.
Okay.
Competition winners.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so apologies you've had to wait for this, but the competition winners, I have two sets of winners to announce. Okay, first up was for the limited edition Metal Drop Fleet Commander ship.
Okay, yeah. Strike Carrier.
I have 10 winners. On Beasts of War, Tanker. On Beasts of War, Vinacro. On Beasts of War, Doom Zombie. On YouTube, Legion of One. On YouTube, Geekmaster K. On YouTube, Brian Kelly. Brian! On Facebook, Donald Pigeon. On Facebook, Jerry Harry. I thought it was Jerry Halliwell there. I thought all right. On Facebook, Scott Hyland. And on BOW, Fridge Logic. Congratulations, everybody. Up there, you will find claim your prize link. So get in contact with us.
On beastsofwar.com.
Yes, come to beastsofwar.com. Go up there and you'll find claim your prize. Okay, Eden.
Yes,
okay.
last week we had the Frontstage prize of the 2-player starter bundle.
Yes.
So we had Dante's Angels, the ISC, and a rulebook to give away.
Okay, so the winner of that bundle was Doom from the website, yeah?
Yes.
And then Backstage, we were giving away a very special prize.
Will we keep that for the Backstage?
Yes, we'll keep that for tomorrow's XLVS.
That prize was to pick one miniature from the Eden range to be painted by Mohammed himself.
Yes, yeah. So remind me to mention that on XLVS tomorrow morning. Okay, we are giving away a wonderful, wonderful prize this week on the Weekender.
That's why I have you in here.
Yes, okay.
Because I want to show off the new 28mm Sci-Fi Terrain set from 4Ground. So Lance, if you pan down here and have a look at it.
So we get to coo and paw over it.
Look at it, they're very cool. I thought it was cooler to actually set this out on a gaming table to show it off.
Yes.
I really like the fact that you've used some Mercs minis on it because they really work with this stuff.
Yeah, they really pop on it, but there's so many games you could use this for. Gates of Antares, even your 40k if you grimy this up a bit.
Now, when I originally saw the photographs for these buildings really do not do them justice at all. When you see them in the flesh and you start to see all the little posters and things like that.
Yeah.
They really do start to pop. I love the plastic windows.
Well, you see, if you go to the internal of the actual building, you've got internal wall sections, and even the internal walls have windows in them.
Let's see if
It's
we
a
can.
really nice detail.
Let's see if we can get that on camera. Can we see that? So, even the very internal walling detail. And the windows actually are very interesting because they have a smoky texture.
right.
Watch out.
Okay.
See that? Can you get that? There's almost like a smoky kind of feel to the windows. Now the background, 4Ground have actually.
Wait, I'll tell you what. Just before you put that lid on, look how neat the stairwell is in this.
Yeah.
Normally stairs are quite chunky. That's actually really fine.
It's not really well done.
Yeah.
And all the doors work.
Yeah, which is a lovely little detail, I always think.
For example, I was looking at it over here. If we have a look at this one. First of all, we'll work our way down. So look at the details on that air conditioning unit. Isn't that really, really nice?
But it's even the little crates have tons of detail on them as well. So
Like
if you look at these, so you've got your military ones.
Look at the little
Your
keypads.
non-hazardous ones, your perishables, and your medical stuff. And even it has little warning symbols and stuff on the side, which is just a lovely, lovely little detail.
And the crates are all, there's different sizes of crates.
Yeah, different shapes and sizes. So you've got those, which are a nice standard size. You've got these, which are a bigger one, the little ones. And they've all got their proper little symbols and stuff on them. So I think they're a lovely, lovely little feature bit.
It has a real grown-up sci-fi kind of feel to it.
Yeah.
I'll bring it back in, cameraman. One of the things that I like is, the ladders. Look at the detail on the actual ladders themselves. And then when you take the top levels off, I'll do it here. Once again, you can see that beautiful kind of what's that? Like an aircon or
it's just a ventilation system.
Ventilation even. In here, even as Justin says, the very doors work. Like look, see, pop.
Yeah. It's just a very classy little terrain system, I think.
Well, you see, the thing about this is, right, 4Ground, as I said, have created a background story to this.
Yeah.
So what they've done is that this terrain is from Mars. So Mars is no longer the red planet; it is now the green planet.
Right, terraforming.
There has been a successful terraformation, I suppose, of
Yes,
Mars, and they have detailed. On the website, some of the kinds of the weather conditions and things that they face on Mars.
Yeah.
And the idea is that these are all shipped to Mars flat packed.
Yeah.
And then they're assembled by the actual colonists, who then put them together according to their specification, whether it be military, medical, or hab.
So some people think they're a bit in the square side, but actually I kind of like it. When I first seen the pictures, I thought, like you, the pictures don't do them justice. Once you're actually looking at them in real life.
We see the thing is that you didn't get from the pictures. You didn't get all the little attention to detail.
All the little attention to details is where this product shines. Now it's a bit square, but I quite like that because it does tie in with the idea of setting up a colony. If you're setting up a colony, you don't want awkward shaped buildings and stuff.
Yeah, but the key to this is right. This represents your core buildings. So do you know the way 4Ground kind of work on this premise of they do your core range of buildings, and then they have some of the specialist buildings that they have.
Yes.
So, for example, they had the core buildings for I can actually show you. They had the core buildings for the fantasy range for Mortenberg, okay? But then when it really comes to life is when they do specialist buildings, like the inn that we see here. So where I'm really excited about this is, yes, there's the core buildings have been done now. I wonder what the specialist buildings are gonna look like.
I tell you what, we do have a competition for these.
Yes.
So everybody at home,
Right.
comment what you want to see as a specialist building for this range.
Yes, this is it. Right, so what the competition this week is, we're giving away a package. It's called the Iapygian Town Starter Set, okay?
Which is this.
And it's some of everything from the current sci-fi range. You're going to get 5 buildings, 24 crates, 56 lights. I haven't even shown you the lights.
Yes.
They have these beautiful little lighting features.
So
in here we haven't put them on yet, but they've all these kinds of hazard lights.
Those are tagging for an LED set.
Will you see how we...
Do you know what? If we put an LED set in this, does look really nice with the tinted windows.
Exactly.
Yes, now's the time to do it, especially around Christmas time when you get all the little battery-powered LED sets.
Exactly, the little battery-powered key lights in there flickering away would look lovely.
Right, let me try and show you this. So here's some of some of the lighting, because I actually was looking at the lighting going, oh, this is really sweet. So you get to put these on.
Oh, they do look nice.
Aren't they lovely?
Yeah, those are little emergency lights, I think.
And we see these ones.
Absolutely lovely. Now one of these for a closer look.
More lights.
So they're a combination of the HDF with
These are
clear
kind
plastic.
of lights that you put on outside, and these are kind of suspended lighting that you could put. I'd be tempted to put them even on the insides of the buildings.
You see, these little ones that we first looked at, I would have them on the inside of the buildings, just on walls and stuff. So say about here.
Put it there, Justin, and you can get it.
Oh, if I don't drop
I don't know
it.
if you'd have it above a window, but you get the idea.
Aye, but you would put those on the inside as emergency light.
Well, I don't know. I'd put them on the outside. If there's lights for the inside, I'd use the ones from the inside.
Well, you see, these I think go to the outside because they have this little corner peg, which
Oh,
lets them go on to
that works really well,
corner
doesn't
of
it?
your building.
Yeah.
Which is where I believe those are meant to go.
Anyway, so to recap,
Yes.
you get 5 buildings, 24 crates, 56 lights, 4 ladders, and 2 packs of storm shutters, which are metallic pieces that can go over the windows and things like that.
I'm guessing that's relatively close to what we're seeing here because we've 5 separate buildings here.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's quite like what you're going to be able to see.
Yeah.
In order to be in with a chance of winning that prize, it's 176 quid's worth of terrain.
What?
So to be in with a chance of winning that prize, we're going to be giving away 2 sets.
Yep.
2.
One to a front stager, one to a backstager.
Yep.
Okay. So to be in with a chance, comment on this show here on beastsofwar.com and comment on tomorrow's XLBS here on beastsofwar.com. And the question is, what would you like to be the first feature piece in this range? And where would you like to see 4Ground grow design-wise with the range in the future? So this is the core buildings. What would you like to see the first feature pieces be?
Are we allowed to make any suggestions?
Yes, go ahead.
I think like an air treatment facility because if they're still terraforming the place.
Yes. Yeah. I want to see Pathfinder. I've been watching The Martian, so I'm totally digging this at the moment.
What I want to see is a mining complex.
Right.
Because new planet, you're obviously going to exploit that mineral wealth.
Or maybe some sort of building that helps create a magnetic field around Mars because Mars doesn't have a magnetic field. So if you terraform it, how do you keep your atmosphere?
What about a power plant?
Power plants can be cool.
Yeah, some kind of really big, horrible, smoky power plant to put lots and lots of carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide into the atmosphere.
Oh, so make it just like home.
So to heat the whole thing up.
I've loads more I could suggest, but I don't want to use
everybody out there has to have their fair bite at it.
Everybody's go.
Well, look, if you want to be in with a chance of winning one of those starter sets, you know what to do. If you want to be in with a chance of winning 2 of those starter sets, come on over and join BC4 Backstage, and yeah, you'll get another shot tomorrow on the XLBS. Okay, right. I want to take another quick break to have a look at some hubs, because Ben is going to come on and talk to us about a couple of Kickstarters. So we'll be right back after this.
Flames of War brings you the battles of World War II in epic 15mm scale. Go to the hub on beastsofwar.com to find news, tactics, and tutorials about the game. Fight for the Iron Kingdoms as a warcaster. Take control of the mighty jacks, arcane devices, and dark sorceries to bring the fight to the War Machine Hub on beastsofwar.com.
We're jumping you around a lot this morning, aren't we?
Finally, we get to sit down.
So we get to sit down, chillax for a little bit. I have a couple of Kickstarters that we're going to talk about. First one was an update to the Drop Fleet Commander Kickstarter, Ben. This is Ben, by the way.
Hello.
So Ben, what's the latest breaking news or big thing on the Drop Fleet Commander Kickstarter?
Well, the big thing that they published sort of this week for Drop Fleet Commando was they are doing, well, they've painted up the Shaltari fleet, and it looks amazing in its, nice, as we've seen them before, lovely orange colour. So it looks really good.
Awesome. So we'll scroll down a little bit to get a look at that. So the Shaltari are one of my favourite races, actually.
They're a very brash colour scheme.
Well, I've been looking forward to seeing how they turn out on this one.
Yeah. Well, when you looked at Drop Zone, like they were very vibrant. One of the more vibrant ones on the table, certainly.
So the Kickstarter is going on and on and on. The amount of stuff that's getting unlocked in this is phenomenal.
This is all UCM Scourge.
Okay.
I love some of the Scourge stuff.
The Scourge stuff is lovely.
Yeah, they're the ones that have caught me for this.
Right.
Ta-da!
Here we go. Right now we're into it.
Yeah.
Just look at those.
Aren't those gorgeous?
Haven't they turned out really well? What do we know about them, Ben?
Well, we know that the Sheltari are a slightly different fleet from the other ones in Drop Fleet Commander. Sorry.
Yeah.
They're a bit more sort of sleek, fast. They have quite sort of low signatures. I think that's what they're called, isn't it? But they can, and they're very delicate. But when they're shot at, they can like use these shields to like protect themselves and things. A little bit like the Sheltari in Drop Zone Commander. They can use shields and stuff on the tabletop.
Now you two guys are actually in on this Kickstarter.
Yeah. Called the pen.
So what are you going for? What's your?
Well, we decided to jump in on the captain level.
Yes, the captain
which
pack
gets you two player starter sets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and it's one of the high rank backers. So we get the free high rank backer stuff as well.
So
as
the extras that we're getting some Sheltari. So we're getting a frigate sprue and a cruiser sprue, some PHR frigate sprue, cruiser sprue.
Mm-hmm.
Almost messed that up. Sorry.
Yeah.
Along with that, I know John is wanting to go for the 2-up of the Beijing battleship.
The 2 upscaled model of the Beijing.
Is there a 2-upscaled one?
Yes.
Yeah, it's about 30 centimeters long, this thing.
Resin, is it?
Yeah. I have to have this. I just have to.
Hey, it's you're putting the ad on me, not me. I'm not splitting the cost for you in that one.
Yeah, you were going to put a couple add-ons.
So which one are you going for then? Who's picking what?
Scourge for me.
Yeah?
Yeah, I love the look of the new Scourge because they're so organic now.
Uh-huh.
You know, on Drop Zone Commander, the Scourge, I don't know, they just felt a little bit too gribbly.
Uh-huh.
You know, so in Drop Fleet Commander, they're just a lot more flowing, a lot more clean, so I like them a lot more.
Ben, what about you? If you had to pick one, mate, which one would it be?
I would have to go for the awesome sort of high sci-fi look of the PHR. So I would love to see some more of that fleet, and I think that's what I'd go for in the end, yeah.
Well, I've got to say, this Sheltari stuff is really speaking to me at the moment. Can we scroll down and see some more?
Yeah, well, we've got some more Sheltari here.
So this is the frigate style. Now, one of the things that you'll notice, guys, from the all of this is that each of the styles of the ships have this kind of a core design, and then what happens is that the sprue allows you to change it and upgrade it to the different classifications of the ship. So cruisers have this core hull, and then the different types of them are brought out from that. Just look at that one. That Obsidian class heavy cruiser is just absolutely nuts. All I can say is I hope that is sporting what I think it is, and if that's 3 burn-through lasers, I think I'm going to go mad.
Well, the problem I have is John, I think, is going to be running at least one St. Petersburg, and that scares me because that's running 2 of them, which is bad enough.
Just look at that.
So I believe the Emerald class mothership actually works in conjunction with the next thing we're seeing, which is the Void Gates.
Yes.
So that was just a little something I've twigged from reading comments and stuff. But I'm expecting lots of movement shenanigans out of these again.
Yes.
It's what Sheltari are good at. Movement shenanigans all across the board.
Well, while we have it, why don't we take a quick look at Ben's PHR? If we keep scrolling down there, we've got some PHR stuff so we can see some of the renders.
This is the Ajax class cruiser.
Tell me these don't look beautiful.
I can't wait to get my hands on
them. Ben, what is it about the PHR stuff that's appealing to you?
I just, well, as well as everything being named after mythological figures, which is just awesome anyway, I just love the design of them. I love like the sleek style, but it's not too overly alien. It's got some almost like a bit of humanity left in it, which works well with the whole PHR thing. And I love the idea of them in game as well. They have this ability to do terrifyingly powerful broadsides. So I love that sort of Age of Sail type thing going on with these ships, which I think is awesome. Can't wait to see how they play.
Yeah. Well, there's still some time to go on the Drop Fleet Commander Kickstarter. They have about 11 days or so left. So if you're interested, head on over and check it out.
It's not long now till the other races, exclusive battlecruisers.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we might even be able to get one of the guys from Hawk into the studios next week to maybe give us a final update. I'm interested to see how some of the different weapons and things work. So if we can get him in, we'll try and get a little bit of a video put together to see if we can see firsthand how the weapons actually compare to one another.
Yeah.
And then we'll do our best to get that out to you guys as soon as possible, so as you can get a look at it as well.
Awesome.
Right. Final Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And then we have a juicy prize for Backstagers based on this Kickstarter. But this one is called Perdition's Mouth. Okay. It's by Arctic Union. It's something a little bit different. Okay. So have a watch of this.
This is Perdition's Mouth, an intricate labyrinth of caves and tunnels carved deep into the ground. We will face many battles before we reach the fullness of its depth. Yet, at its very bottom, lies the abyssal rift, prison to a terrible demon, a foul avatar of the insectoid god. The fiend has waited many lifetimes for the sinister cult of half-human, half-insectoid abominations to complete the year-long summoning ritual, releasing her bonds once more.
I have foreseen what will happen should they succeed. Our only chance is to marshal all our unique talent and deny them their purpose.
A grim adventure at the brink of oblivion. Bloody, dreadful, and definitely not easy.
We must not delay. Let's get going. Better move.
So this is Perdition's Mouth.
This is a creepy one.
It is kind of creepy. Yeah, insect gods and insectoids. I'm quite drawn to this. We reached out to these guys whenever we got pointed by a community member to the Kickstarter. We've reached out to them. We're trying to get a little interview and stuff with them because the more we looked into it, the more we realized that they've some really interesting game mechanics and stuff, and they're doing stuff a little bit differently. Before I get to the game mechanics, Ben, can you give us a bit of a rundown on, just once again, on the theme of the game?
Okay, so it's a dungeon crawler, as you can see from some of the tiles and things like that, and you play a group of fantasy adventurers that are all very different from the ones you might have seen before. I mean, there's some that are sort of, the sword and board and things like that, but then there's a dwarf with like an insane chainsaw type thing, and you're trying to fight your way through this labyrinthine dungeon to try and defeat the cultists of this insectoid god, as you saw in the trailer. So.
Yeah. Now, some of the monsters themselves look absolutely fab. We do have a prize, actually, which is the professionally painted demon model. We'll get a picture of that flashed up on screen for you guys so as you can see that.
That is a big, nasty, gribbly guy.
That is a big, nasty, gribbly guy, and a Backstager is going to win that in tomorrow's XLBS episode.
One to stay tuned for.
But Ben, I want to talk a little bit about the game mechanics. They're using this thing called a rondel. So they've got two tactical rondels, one for the heroes and one for the enemies. There is no dice in this game. Can you give us an idea of some of the mechanics and how they've approached the mechanics of this game?
Yeah, so the idea behind Perdition's Mouth was that it's very much like a proper co-op game. I mean, there are other co-op games out there that are dungeon crawlers and stuff like that, but this one enforces that by the use of the rondel. Now, the rondel shows you what actions are going to be available on a certain turn, and conversely, what actions will be available for the monsters as well. They call it the Rock of Destiny in this game.
Yeah.
And so what that means is that on a turn, you'll see what spaces are going to be available to you and what actions are going to be available to you. So you have to work together. You can't do the whole, I'm going to charge off down the corridor and kill everything by myself. You have to work together and choose the spots on this rondel so that you can make the most of your actions. So like you might have to work together to perform a specifically defensive action or things like that, or you might have to sacrifice the movement that you wanted last turn.
Yeah.
Something different this turn. And then in added to that, as you said, well, there's no dice in this game as well, so it's all driven by player action cards. And interestingly, on top of that as well, there are like these twists of fate within the game.
Yeah.
In that there are response cards that are played to any action that is done. And these can give uncertainty to what's happened. So you could have planned out a perfect move, and then suddenly these minuses hit you, and you're like, "Oh God, we've just lost. What are we going to do?"
See, I think you're going to love this one because this gives you so much scope for being a narrative game.
Well, it was the fact that firstly, I love insectoids as a Tyranid player. You know, I've got deep love for anything that's kind of insectoid. I think it looks great. I love the gribbly monsters.
Yeah.
And you know, the whole idea of it being set in a labyrinth. You know, there are a number of dungeon crawlers out there. So what I'm interested in is anybody that can come at it from a different angle. Anybody that can bring something fresh to it. There's a couple of really good. If you bring it back up there, Justin. There's a couple of little kind of playthroughs by some other groups up there. If you scroll up,
is it further down? I thought, or is it up?
No, you're right. It might be further down. So it's but there's a couple of playthroughs as well.
There we go.
That are worth having a look at. Where by Board Game Brawl. And the Abyssal Rift components update and stuff in there. So if you're interested in watching a couple of videos, and there's one there from Spiel as well, it's definitely worth having a look at. But it was one that we wanted to place on your radar and see how you.
It's one to have a look at. It's definitely one to have a look at.
So, Ben, any last words on Perdition's Mouth?
I think that this is definitely something to go and check out. I like the fact that they've gone with very alternative heroes. They've gone with an interesting theme. I like the fact that they're embracing a lot more of these Euro game mechanics into things and getting rid of the dice stuff. So I think it'll add a really nice tactical depth to dungeon crawlers.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, guys, so remember, we'll bring another picture up here. On tomorrow's XLBS show, we are giving away another one of those 4Ground terrain sets that we talked about earlier in the show, but we're also giving away a professionally painted model of the demon from Perdition's Mouth. So if you would like to win that, and who wouldn't, because it looks absolutely staggeringly awful. If you want one of them, come across, support Beasts of War by joining up to our Backstage and get to watch our XLBS show and have some fun with us tomorrow morning. Right, Ben, thank you for joining us. Thanks to John, Justin, Lloyd, everybody else that's been involved. We have a boot camp that we really need to get back to building and constructing on, so we're going to leave it at that this week. Remember, next weekend is the live boot camp weekend. We're going to be live blogging Team Yankee all weekend, so be sure to get involved in that. We're going to have prizes and things like that on the go as well. So until we see you next weekend, have a great week of gaming.
Progress comes to a world of magic as science and the arcane combine to make marvels. Meet steampunk inventors and orc mystics at the Volsung Hub on beastsofwar.com. Humanity has been driven from Earth, but now it's time to take it back. Join the Reconquest and fight the Scourge on the Drop Zone Commander Hub at beastsofwar.com.